The ground beneath our feet is not merely soil, it is a manuscript. For centuries, we have assumed that the story of human history was a fixed narrative, a book with chapters already written, edited, and bound. We believed we knew when people arrived in the Americas, how civilization began in the Fertile Crescent, and the limits of prehistoric engineering. But archaeology is a destructive science that rebuilds as it destroys. Recent excavations are overturning long-held theories, revealing that our ancestors were traveling further, building larger, and organizing much earlier than we ever dared to imagine. From the blinding white sands of New Mexico to the dark peat bogs of Germany, the Earth is handing us puzzle pieces that simply do not fit the picture on the box. To understand the sheer scale of these revisions, we must journey to 5 specific sites. These are the locations where the official record has crumbled under the weight of hard evidence, forcing us to look at a timeline that is deeper, more complex, and far more mysterious than the textbooks suggest. 1. White sands. Footprints. The timeline breaker. The Tularosa Basin in New Mexico is a deceptive landscape. To the modern observer, it appears as a barren wasteland of gypsum dunes, an alien expanse where life struggles to gain a foothold. However, 20,000 years ago, during the height of the Ice Age, this was the site of Lake Otero, a massive, lush wetland teeming with Columbian mammoths, dire wolves, and giant ground sloths. For decades, local park rangers whispered about ghost tracks. The name is technically accurate because these footprints are usually invisible. The gypsum sand is so bright, and the wind scours the ground so clean that one could walk right over them without noticing a disturbance. But the ground has a memory. When moisture conditions are perfect, the difference in density between the compressed sand of a footprint and the surrounding soil reveals the past. Breaking the Clovis barrier. For the better part of a century, American archaeology was governed by the Clovis First dogma. This theory held that humans could not have entered North America until the massive ice sheets covering Canada began to melt and separate, opening an ice-free corridor roughly 13,000 years ago. Any site claiming to be older was dismissed as an error. Then came the excavations at White Sands. In 2021, researchers found layers of human footprints. Crucially, squashed inside these prints were seeds of ditchgrass, Rupia serosa. Because the seeds were trapped by the pressure of the foot, they provided a direct link to the moment the track was made. The carbon dating results were cataclysmic for the established timeline, 21,000 to 23,000 years ago. This placed humans in New Mexico during the last glacial maximum. At this time, the ice sheets were impenetrable walls of frozen water, miles high. The corridor did not exist. If humans were there 23,000 years ago, the entire story of migration had to be rewritten. The science of verification skeptics immediately attacked the data, citing the hard water effect, the idea that aquatic plants absorbed ancient carbon from groundwater, skewing the dates. To silence the critics, the team returned in 2023 with an agonizingly precise approach. They isolated 75,000 grains of ancient pine pollen, a terrestrial plant immune to the hard water effect, from the same layers. They also employed optically stimulated luminescence, OSL. Note on OSL. This technology allows physicists to measure when quartz crystals were last exposed to sunlight. Buried quartz acts like a rechargeable battery, trapping natural radiation. By measuring this energy, we can calculate the exact moment a grain of sand was buried. The pollen and OSL dates match the seeds perfectly. The debate was over. Humans have been in the Americas for at least 10,000 years longer than previously believed, likely arriving via a kelp highway along the Pacific coast rather than walking through the ice. A window into daily life. Beyond the dates, White Sands offers an intimate look at the people. One trackway reveals a teenager or young woman carrying a child, shifting the toddler from hip to hip as she walked briskly across the mud. Another section shows the prints of a giant ground sloth, an animal the size of an elephant. The sloth tracks show the animal rearing up on its hind legs in a defensive posture as it catches the human scent. Inside the sloth print is a human print, proving they interacted in real time. This was not a quick extinction event. It was a dangerous dance of coexistence that lasted millennia. 2. Boncuklu Tarla, the zero point of civilization. For generations, we were taught the Neolithic revolution followed a logical sequence. Humans invented agriculture, which allowed them to settle down, which eventually led to the development of religion, society, and complex architecture. We believed cities were the result of farming. A site in southeastern Turkey, Boncuklu Tarla, the beaded field, is currently destroying that sequence. Dating back approximately 12,000 years to the pre-pottery Neolithic A, this site is contemporary with the earliest layers of the famous Göbekli Tepe. But while Göbekli Tepe is a temple, Boncuklu Tarla was a home, and a home that should not have existed in the Stone Age. The impossible sewer. When archaeologists peeled back the earth, they found evidence of a sewer system. Stone-lined channels ran beneath the floors of the buildings, engineered to carry wastewater out of the settlement. This discovery is staggering. You do not build a sewer system by accident. It requires urban planning before the first foundation stone is laid. It implies that 12,000 years ago, thousands of years before the Romans or Greeks, these primitive people understood hygiene and permanent sanitation. Rectangular architecture. Furthermore, the buildings were not the simple round huts typical of the era. They were rectangular with sharp 90-degree corners. In structural engineering, the move from round to square is a massive leap, requiring a deep understanding of load-bearing walls. These were permanent houses built to last generations, not seasonal camps. The beaded economy. The site is named for the more than 50,000 beads discovered there. These were not crude trinkets. They were intricate jewelry made from obsidian, turquoise, and marine shells. Obsidian, volcanic glass that is incredibly hard to drill without shattering. Marine shells, sourced from the Red Sea or Mediterranean, hundreds of miles away. The existence of 50,000 beads implies excess. You do not spend tens of thousands of hours drilling tiny holes in stone if you are starving. This society had enough food surplus to support a class of artisans. It supports the feasting theory, the idea that the desire to gather for social and ritual reasons came first, and this pressure forced the invention of agriculture to feed the masses. 3. Gantija temples, the Giant's Tower. In the middle of the Mediterranean lies the island of Malta and its smaller sister island Gozo. Here, standing on a ridge, are the Gantija temples. The name translates to the Giant's Tower, and for centuries, locals believed only giants could have moved these stones. Radiocarbon dating places their construction between 3600 and 3200 BC. To provide context, when these massive limestone walls were being stacked, the Great Pyramids of Egypt were still 1,000 years in the future. Stonehenge was an empty field. Gantija proves that advanced engineering was not a gift from the East, diffusionism, but a homegrown innovation developed by isolated farmers. The physics of the impossible. The builders of Malta had no metal tools, no pulleys, and crucially, no wheel. The wheel would not arrive in this region for another millennium. Yet they moved coralline limestone blocks weighing over 50 tons. The standard academic explanation is that they rolled the stones on spherical stone balls like a conveyor belt. However, physics argues against this. If the ground is soft, the balls sink. If the ground is hard, bedrock, the massive weight of a 50-ton block point loads onto the top of the spheres, pulverizing them into dust. The logistical capability required to move these stones suggests a highly stratified society, likely a theocracy, capable of commanding the labor of the entire population. The sound of the gods. The interior of the temples reveals a sophisticated understanding of neuroscience. The structure is formed of lobed apses resembling a clover leaf. A study on the acoustics of these chambers found that they create a resonance frequency of 110 Hz. When a male voice chants at this frequency inside the temple, the sound amplifies and creates a physical vibration in the body. Neuroscientists have observed that exposure to 110 Hz can deactivate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for language and critical thinking, and encourage a trance-like state. These builders were not just engineering stone, they were engineering human consciousness. Around 2500 BC, the civilization vanished. The temples were abandoned, leaving us to wonder if they were victims of ecological collapse or a religious revolution against the priesthood that demanded such backbreaking labor. 4. Durrington Walls, the Superhenge. Stonehenge is the celebrity of the ancient world. But just 2 miles away, hidden beneath the turf, lies a discovery that makes the famous stone circle look like a minor detail in a much larger machine. For years, Durrington Walls was known as a Neolithic settlement, but the Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes project, using ground-penetrating radar, revealed that the settlement was surrounded by a series of massive anomalies. The Ring of Shafts. The scans revealed a precise circle of gigantic shafts, each measuring roughly 10 meters in diameter and 5 meters deep. The circle spans 2 kilometers in diameter. It is so large that the entire modern village of Durrington fits inside it. Skeptics initially dismissed these as natural sinkholes, solution hollows. But core samples proved the walls were cut vertically into the chalk bedrock, a clear sign of human tooling. Industrial-scale devotion. The labor required to dig this ring with deer antlers and cattle shoulder blades is incomprehensible. Removing thousands of tons of chalk was not just construction, it was an act of devotion. This discovery clarifies the duality of the landscape. Stonehenge, built of stone, and you're permanent for the ancestors and the dead. Durrington Walls, built of wood, decaying for the living and feasting. The massive ring acted as a cordon sanitaire, a holy barrier separating the sacred precinct from the profane world. It proves that the Stonehenge builders were terraforming their entire world, manipulating the landscape on an industrial scale to align with their cosmology. We stood on top of one of the largest prehistoric structures in Europe for centuries, completely blind to its existence. 5. Tollens Valley Battle. The Bronze Age. World War We often romanticize the past, viewing the European Bronze Age as a time of peaceful farming communities living in harmony with nature. A discovery in northern Germany's Tollens Valley has shattered that myth, revealing a brutality that rivals modern warfare. In 1996, an amateur archaeologist found a human bone sticking out of the riverbank. Embedded in it was a flint arrowhead. The field of slaughter excavations revealed not a burial ground, but a massacre. The peat bog preserved the remains of hundreds of men, alongside wooden clubs, bronze spears, and broken swords. The injuries were horrific: skulls smashed by maces, bones pierced by arrows, and arms snapped in defensive postures. The scale of conflict. By extrapolating from the excavated area, researchers estimate that 4,000 warriors fought in this battle around 1250 BC. In the context of the Bronze Age, where the population density was roughly 5 people per square kilometer, an army of 4,000 is shocking. It implies a state-level society capable of logistics, feeding and equipping thousands of men. Trade, importing copper and tin from hundreds of miles away to make bronze weapons. Leadership, a hierarchy capable of mobilizing a multinational force. Isotope analysis shows many warriors came from as far away as Bohemia. The Lost Empire. This battle occurred on a narrow causeway bridge, a choke point on a major trade route. But the most haunting aspect is the silence. We have no written record of this war. We do not know the name of the king who led the attack or the empire that defended the bridge. The Tollens Valley proves that Northern Europe was home to powerful, organized, and violent civilizations that history completely forgot. It serves as a grim reminder that humans have been efficient at organized violence for a very long time, needing only a reason and the will to mobilize. Conclusion. From the footprints of children in New Mexico to the shattered bones of warriors in Germany, these 5 discoveries force us to be humble. They remind us that the map of the past is still largely blank. We often assume that because we have mapped the globe, we have mapped history. But if we can miss a 2-kilometer-wide monument next to Stonehenge or a ghost population that lived in the Americas for 10,000 years, what else is waiting right beneath our feet? We are not at the end of discovery. We are barely scratching the surface. Would you like me to generate a specific prompt for an AI image generator for any of the scenes described above, like the Tollens battle or the White Sands sloth interaction, so you can visualize them?